What if some of the greatest secrets in human history have been sitting beneath our feet this entire time? For thousands of years, civilizations rose, built cities, created extraordinary monuments, developed mysterious symbols, and then disappeared. Their homes collapsed. Their languages vanished. Their stories were forgotten. But fragments survived, buried beneath deserts, hidden inside caves, submerged beneath oceans, and preserved in stone. And when archaeologists finally uncovered those fragments, they sometimes found something unexpected. A mystery. An artifact with no clear explanation. A civilization with no surviving voice. A symbol that nobody can confidently translate. A human discovery that does not fit neatly into the story we thought we understood. Science has explained countless mysteries from the ancient world. But some questions remain stubbornly unanswered. Who created these strange objects? Why did entire civilizations disappear? What did their mysterious symbols actually mean? And how much of humanity's ancient story has simply been lost? Tonight, we are going deeper than the legends. From forgotten civilizations and underwater cities to mysterious artifacts, ancient human remains, unexplained symbols, and monumental structures. We will explore some of the most fascinating mysteries that continue to challenge archaeologists, historians, and scientists. But remember, an unexplained discovery is not automatically proof of something supernatural. Sometimes the answer is hidden inside geology. Sometimes it is buried beneath layers of forgotten history. And sometimes we simply do not have enough evidence yet. That uncertainty is what makes these mysteries so fascinating. Because every answer we discover seems to reveal another question waiting in the darkness. So stay with us until the end. Because some of the most mysterious discoveries are not the ones that have no explanation. They are the ones where the explanation itself raises even more questions. What if the history you were taught is only the surface of something far older, stranger, and more complicated? Beneath deserts, beneath oceans, inside forgotten caves, and buried under thousands of years of soil, there are discoveries that seem to raise more questions than answers. Ancient cities that disappeared. Symbols nobody can confidently read. Human remains that do not fit neatly into our understanding of evolution. And objects that look so unusual that people have spent decades arguing over whether they were created by humans, shaped by nature, or simply misunderstood. But here is the disturbing part. Some of these mysteries have been studied by scientists, archaeologists, and historians for generations. Yet the final answers remain frustratingly out of reach. Tonight, we are going deeper into the ancient world, into the places where evidence ends, certainty disappears, and the past becomes a puzzle. These are some of the most unsolved mysteries that science still cannot completely explain. We're already building cities, creating enormous monuments, recording symbols, performing rituals, and crossing vast landscapes. Then, in some cases, they vanished. Their buildings remained. Their tools remained. Their bones remained. But their voices disappeared. One of the most fascinating examples is the civilization of Jiroft, discovered in southeastern Iran. For centuries, almost nothing was known about this culture. Then, in 2001, flooding along the Halil River exposed ancient graves and artifacts that had been hidden beneath the ground. Archaeologists uncovered beautifully carved stone vessels, jewelry, tools, weapons, and objects decorated with humans, animals, serpents, and strange mythical creatures. Some of the artifacts were around 40,500 years old. Their craftsmanship was remarkable. Their imagery appeared sophisticated, symbolic, and sometimes strangely similar to artistic traditions found farther west in Mesopotamia. And suddenly, an old assumption became harder to maintain. Sometimes exaggerated, sometimes mixed with later interpretations. But occasionally, they may preserve fragments of real events or real places that were transformed over generations. And that means the boundary between archaeology and memory may be far more complicated than we realize. The ancient world was filled with people who experienced disasters, migrations, conflicts, environmental changes, and cultural transformations. Most of those stories disappeared, but perhaps not all of them. Some may still exist as fragments in the legends we continue to tell. Then there are the objects. Small things, large things. Objects that appear so strange that one glance is enough to create an extraordinary theory. But this is where we must be careful. Because sometimes the most mysterious objects in history are not evidence of lost technology. They are evidence of how easily human beings can mistake the unusual for the impossible. Consider the famous Coso artifact. In 1961, rock hunters in California discovered an object enclosed within a hard mineral formation. It appeared to resemble a modern spark plug. The discovery became controversial because some believed the surrounding material was extremely ancient. If a modern-looking object were genuinely trapped inside hundreds of thousands of years of rock, the implications would be enormous. It could suggest something was deeply wrong with our understanding of technology and chronology. But geology offered another possibility. The surrounding material may have been a concretion, a mineral deposit that formed around an already existing object. In other words, the object itself may not have been ancient. It may simply have become enclosed by geological processes. And this distinction is critical. Something can look ancient without actually being ancient. Something can appear impossible without being impossible. The Coso artifact eventually disappeared, leaving photographs and reports rather than an object available for modern examination. Without the original artifact, the mystery became almost impossible to settle conclusively. And that is one of the most frustrating things about historical mysteries. Evidence can disappear. Artifacts can be moved. Records can be lost. Objects can be damaged. Sometimes the most important piece of evidence is the one thing we no longer possess. Now go from the desert to the bottom of the Atlantic. In 1968, a deep-sea expedition captured an image of a strange object standing on the ocean floor. The structure appeared upright, with branching extensions and rounded shapes. To the human eye, it looked almost mechanical, like a device, an antenna, something constructed. And almost immediately, speculation followed. Could it be evidence of an unknown civilization beneath the ocean? Could it be some kind of ancient machine? Could it be extraterrestrial? The reality was far less dramatic. Marine scientists identified the structure as a deep-sea sponge. In the darkness and extreme pressure of the deep ocean, biological organisms can develop forms that look remarkably artificial. Branches can create symmetry. Growth patterns can produce repetition. And the human brain is exceptionally good at detecting patterns, even when those patterns are produced entirely by nature. This phenomenon appears again on Champ Island in the Russian Arctic. There, enormous stone spheres can be found scattered across the landscape. Some are astonishingly round. Some contain visible layers. Some appear almost as though they were manufactured. But geological processes can create spherical concretions over immense periods of time. Minerals accumulate around a central core, gradually producing a rounded structure. Erosion eventually exposes it. The result can look engineered. But no evidence of human construction is required. And this brings us to one of the most important ideas in the entire mystery of archaeology. Nature can look designed, and humans can create things whose original purpose becomes impossible to understand. The Olmec colossal heads are a perfect example. They had broad facial features and pronounced brow ridges that reminded researchers of much earlier human populations. And this created an unsettling question. Who exactly were these people? Were they a previously unknown population of modern humans? Were they descendants of an isolated ancient group? Could they have carried genetic contributions from archaic human relatives? Or were their unusual features simply the result of natural variation within our own species? Science has proposed several possibilities, but the evidence has not produced one universally accepted answer. And that matters because human evolution was never as simple as a straight road. It was more like a massive forest. Different human populations emerged, migrated, interacted, disappeared, and sometimes mixed with one another. The Red Deer Cave remains are a reminder that there may still be branches of that story we have not fully reconstructed. But the ancient dead can reveal mysteries beyond evolution. In China, archaeologists also discovered the burial of an individual with proportionate dwarfism, dating to around 10,000 years ago. The person survived into young adulthood during a period when life was difficult and physical limitations could have made survival challenging. What makes the discovery particularly interesting is the burial itself. The individual appears to have received careful treatment. That raises a deeply human question. How did ancient communities treat people who were physically different? Were they protected, respected, given a special social or spiritual role? Or was their burial simply part of an ordinary cultural practice we no longer understand? Bones cannot answer that question, but they can tell us something powerful. This person lived. Someone knew them. Someone may have cared for them. And thousands of years later, the only evidence of their existence is a skeleton beneath the earth. Now travel from the mountains of China to the Mediterranean. Beneath the shallow waters of southern Greece lies Pavlopetri, one of the most remarkable submerged archaeological sites ever discovered. It is not simply a collection of broken ruins. Its streets can still be traced. Buildings can still be identified. Courtyards and organized spaces remain visible beneath the sea. The settlement is more than 5,000 years old. And suddenly, another mystery appears. Why is an ancient city underwater? The most likely explanations are geological. Earthquakes may have altered the coastline. Changes in sea level may have transformed the region. The land may have gradually sunk while the ocean advanced. But we do not have a surviving written account describing the final days of the settlement. There is no ancient witness telling us what happened. Pavlopetri simply became a city beneath the sea. And that image is difficult to ignore. Imagine walking through a city that once contained homes, streets, families, merchants, children, and ordinary daily life, only to imagine all of it eventually disappearing beneath the water. The people are gone. The language is gone. The memories are gone. But the streets remain. Then there is Lovelock Cave in Nevada. Indigenous Paiute traditions include stories of the Site Ka, sometimes described in later retellings as red-haired giants. Early 20th century excavations at Lovelock Cave uncovered baskets, tools, animal remains, and human remains. Some early reports also mentioned unusually large individuals and oversized sandals. For mystery enthusiasts, the story seemed almost perfect. Legend, giants, ancient cave, archaeological evidence. But the scientific picture is much less dramatic. Modern researchers have not established evidence for a race of giant humans. Hair can change color after burial, and the size of artifacts does not automatically prove the existence of giants. Still, the story survives. And that raises a different mystery. Why do certain legends remain alive even after scientific explanations challenge their most extraordinary claims? Perhaps because myths are not simply stories. They are memories, sometimes distorted, sometimes exaggerated, sometimes mixed with later interpretations. But occasionally, they may preserve fragments of real events or real places that were transformed over generations. And that means the boundary between archaeology and memory may be far more complicated than we realize. The ancient world was filled with people who experienced disasters, migrations, conflicts, environmental changes, and cultural transformations. Most of those stories disappeared, but perhaps not all of them. Some may still exist as fragments in the legends we continue to tell. Then there are the objects. Small things, large things. Objects that appear so strange that one glance is enough to create an extraordinary theory. But this is where we must be careful. Because sometimes the most mysterious objects in history are not evidence of lost technology. They are evidence of how easily human beings can mistake the unusual for the impossible. Consider the famous Coso artifact. In 1961, rock hunters in California discovered an object enclosed within a hard mineral formation. It appeared to resemble a modern spark plug. The discovery became controversial because some believed the surrounding material was extremely ancient. If a modern-looking object were genuinely trapped inside hundreds of thousands of years of rock, the implications would be enormous. It could suggest something was deeply wrong with our understanding of technology and chronology. But geology offered another possibility. The surrounding material may have been a concretion, a mineral deposit that formed around an already existing object. In other words, the object itself may not have been ancient. It may simply have become enclosed by geological processes. And this distinction is critical. Something can look ancient without actually being ancient. Something can appear impossible without being impossible. The Coso artifact eventually disappeared, leaving photographs and reports rather than an object available for modern examination. Without the original artifact, the mystery became almost impossible to settle conclusively. And that is one of the most frustrating things about historical mysteries. Evidence can disappear. Artifacts can be moved. Records can be lost. Objects can be damaged. Sometimes the most important piece of evidence is the one thing we no longer possess. Now go from the desert to the bottom of the Atlantic. In 1968, a deep-sea expedition captured an image of a strange object standing on the ocean floor. The structure appeared upright, with branching extensions and rounded shapes. To the human eye, it looked almost mechanical, like a device, an antenna, something constructed. And almost immediately, speculation followed. Could it be evidence of an unknown civilization beneath the ocean? Could it be some kind of ancient machine? Could it be extraterrestrial? The reality was far less dramatic. Marine scientists identified the structure as a deep-sea sponge. In the darkness and extreme pressure of the deep ocean, biological organisms can develop forms that look remarkably artificial. Branches can create symmetry. Growth patterns can produce repetition. And the human brain is exceptionally good at detecting patterns, even when those patterns are produced entirely by nature. This phenomenon appears again on Champ Island in the Russian Arctic. There, enormous stone spheres can be found scattered across the landscape. Some are astonishingly round. Some contain visible layers. Some appear almost as though they were manufactured. But geological processes can create spherical concretions over immense periods of time. Minerals accumulate around a central core, gradually producing a rounded structure. Erosion eventually exposes it. The result can look engineered. But no evidence of human construction is required. And this brings us to one of the most important ideas in the entire mystery of archaeology. Nature can look designed, and humans can create things whose original purpose becomes impossible to understand. The Olmec colossal heads are a perfect example. Across Mexico, 17 enormous stone heads have been discovered, created roughly between 1400 and 900 BCE. Each one is unique. The faces are powerful and highly recognizable. Some weigh many tons, and the basalt used to create them had to be transported across considerable distances. The engineering challenge was enormous. But the mystery is not necessarily how they were made. Ancient people had organization, manpower, ropes, timber, waterways, and generations of practical knowledge. The deeper question is why they made them. Many researchers believe the heads represented rulers or important individuals. Others emphasize their possible religious and political symbolism. But we cannot ask the people who carved them. Their monuments survived. Their voices did not. And that pattern appears again with Sangxingdui in China. Massive bronze masks, towering figures, and a spectacular bronze tree were discovered in ritual pits. The faces are so unusual that they can look almost otherworldly. But ancient art does not need to represent visitors from another planet. Exaggerated eyes, ears, and facial features can represent spiritual abilities, supernatural beings, ancestors, or religious concepts. The real mystery is not necessarily what they looked like. It is what they meant. Why were the objects broken? Why were some burned? Why were they buried? Was it a ritual? A political transformation? A religious event? Or something we have not yet considered? We have evidence. But evidence is not the same as an explanation. And perhaps that is why these mysteries survive. Not because science has failed, but because the evidence itself is incomplete. And then we reach one of the greatest mysteries of all. Not a giant statue, not a buried city, not a strange object, but a civilization whose own voice has been locked away for thousands of years. The Indus Valley Civilization was one of the great urban cultures of the ancient world. Cities such as Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro contained organized streets, sophisticated drainage systems, standardized construction, and evidence of complex planning. These were not primitive settlements. They were major urban centers. Yet despite this sophistication, something incredibly important remains silent: their writing. Thousands of seals have been discovered bearing short sequences of symbols, often accompanied by animals such as bulls, elephants, or mysterious composite creatures. Researchers have studied these inscriptions for generations, but no universally accepted decipherment exists. And the reason is brutally simple. The inscriptions are short. There is no equivalent of the Rosetta Stone providing a bilingual key. There is no long surviving manuscript explaining the grammar. There is no obvious descendant language that can be used as a bridge. So the civilization that built carefully planned cities left behind a language we still cannot confidently read. Think about what that means. We may know how they built their homes. We may know how they managed water. We may know what animals they depicted. But we still cannot hear their own words. Then there is Sangsingdui, another sophisticated civilization, another collection of extraordinary artifacts. And again, very little written explanation. This culture disappeared from the historical record around the end of the 2nd millennium BCE, and although archaeologists continue to study the evidence, the exact reasons for its transformation remain debated. Natural disasters? Political change? Migration? Cultural integration? We do not know. The same uncertainty surrounds the Nok culture of West Africa. The Nok people created remarkably detailed terracotta sculptures more than 2,000 years ago. Their figures have elaborate hairstyles, expressive faces, and sophisticated forms. Yet no surviving written record explains who these people were. Their civilization must be reconstructed from fragments of clay, stone, and soil. And then there are the Moai of Rapa Nui. Nearly 1,000 enormous statues were created across the isolated island. For years, their transportation seemed almost impossible. But experiments have demonstrated that groups of people could potentially move statues using ropes and a rocking motion, effectively making them appear to walk. The mystery therefore changed. It was no longer simply, how could they possibly move these statues? It became something much more interesting. What social system allowed them to organize such enormous projects? Why did they build them? And why did production eventually stop? At Rano Raraku, unfinished statues remain attached to the volcanic rock. It is as though the work simply stopped. One moment, people were carving. Then something changed. Perhaps resources, perhaps politics, perhaps social structure, perhaps environmental pressure. The exact combination remains debated, and this is where all of these mysteries converge. The ancient world was not a simple place. Civilizations were capable of extraordinary engineering without modern machines. Artists created images whose meanings we can only partially understand. People crossed enormous distances. Communities cared for vulnerable individuals. Cities were built, abandoned, flooded, buried, and forgotten. and symbols were created that still resist translation. Science has explained many things that once seemed impossible. It has shown that strange stones can form naturally, that mysterious structures can be biological, that legends can become distorted over generations, that ancient engineering can be achieved through organization rather than futuristic technology. But science also tells us something else. There is still a tremendous amount we do not know. The unanswered questions are not proof of aliens. They are not automatic evidence of lost super civilizations. They are not permission to turn speculation into fact. They are something more fascinating. They are invitations to investigate. Because every mystery begins with a gap in our knowledge. And every new discovery has the potential to fill that gap, or make it even larger. Somewhere beneath an ancient settlement, another inscription may be waiting. Somewhere inside a forgotten cave, another burial may be hidden. Somewhere beneath the ocean, another city may be preserved beneath the waves. And somewhere in a museum collection, an artifact may already exist that researchers have not yet learned how to understand. The past is still speaking. We just do not know all of its languages. And perhaps that is the most unsettling mystery of all. Not that humanity has forgotten everything, but that we may have forgotten far more than we realize. History does not end when a civilization disappears. Sometimes, that is when the mystery begins. The ruins remain. The statues remain. The symbols remain. But the people who created them are gone. Their voices have disappeared into time, leaving modern researchers with fragments that must be carefully pieced together. And perhaps that is the most fascinating part of the ancient world. We are not looking at a complete story. We are looking at evidence. A broken piece of pottery. A buried city. A mysterious burial. A carved symbol. A massive monument. Each one tells us something. But none of them tells us everything. The mysteries we explored are reminders that our understanding of human history is still evolving. Some discoveries that once seemed impossible have eventually received perfectly natural explanations. Others remain genuinely uncertain because the evidence is incomplete. And that distinction matters. Because mystery does not mean we should abandon science. It means we should ask better questions. The ancient world was filled with intelligent, creative, organized people who solved problems without the technology we have today. Their achievements remind us that our ancestors were capable of far more than we sometimes imagine. But they also remind us how fragile knowledge can be. A language can disappear. A city can sink beneath the sea. A civilization can collapse. A tradition can be forgotten. And once the people who carried that knowledge are gone, recovering it can become almost impossible. Yet the search continues. Every excavation gives archaeologists another opportunity to recover a missing piece. Every newly discovered artifact can challenge an old assumption. Every undeciphered symbol could potentially reveal a forgotten language. And every ancient site could contain evidence that changes how we understand the people who came before us. So perhaps the greatest mystery is not what ancient civilizations knew. It is how much of their knowledge disappeared before anyone could record it. Somewhere beneath the earth, there are still buried settlements. Somewhere beneath the ocean, there may be forgotten structures. Somewhere inside museum collections, there may be artifacts whose true purpose remains unknown. And somewhere in the future, another discovery may force humanity to rewrite another chapter of its own story. Until then, the past remains unfinished. Its clues are scattered. Its voices are silent. And its deepest secrets remain hidden behind thousands of years of darkness. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who loves ancient mysteries, and subscribe for more investigations into the strangest discoveries from our world. Because the next mystery may already be waiting, buried, forgotten, and completely unknown until we uncover it.